I deleted 1 year's progress on my FPS game, and you might be asking why, especially considering that I finally just completed the foundation of movement, spellcasting, creating an open world, creating the inventory system, creating the UI, and the enemies that inhabit the world, boss included. Well, it was because I decided I needed to change the resource system. Originally, I was just going to use ammo and cooldowns, but I realized that cooldowns feel like butthole with this game, and a sort of combo point system makes the combat feel so much smoother without making things too hard to understand. Well, so I got to work. Revamped the resource system so that you can use your crystals / ammo, and that fills up your combo point / mana pool thing, which then allows you to use the spells as you please with no cooldown. This also makes you have to actually use your weapons rather than just spamming spells, and as a result, makes the combat constantly engaging. I was super proud of this system and I thought it felt really good, so I was really excited to finally being so close to having a play testable game for you. All that was left was to finish updating the spells I created previously. But when I opened that spell folder, I quickly realized my current spell system is not going to work with this new resource system at all. I mean, some of the spells would work fine, but the foundation of the spell system was not compatible in the way that I really wanted it to be. I thought, well, that's fine. I needed to set up the spells in multiplayer anyway, so I'll just make a new system. It wouldn't be too bad. This is when I discovered something called Gas, which is the ability system used in Unreal Engine that supposedly works well for multiplayer games. However, it also requires that you know C++ and coding. I thought to myself, well, it's no biggie. I know the basics of C++ now and need to learn how to implement it into Unreal Engine anyways, because I needed to eventually update the movement component, which requires C++. So I figured I'd start with the more fundamental side of things, the movement. And this is when reality set in. You may or may not know this, but movement is notoriously troublesome when it comes to multiplayer games. This is because of a process called Replication, which essentially allows the server to sync up the character's movement or actions that they take so that everyone is seeing the same thing roughly at the same time. So when I went in to change up the movement system, well, I realized the only way to make it work properly would be if I started completely from scratch. This is when the depression set in. Then after 2 weeks of wondering why I'm such a piece of shit and why I can't do anything and how worthless I am, I soon realized that this is actually a golden opportunity. You see, I'm at a very crucial moment in this game dev journey, and I've always believed that getting player feedback is the best way to make a game right. So right now is your chance to really help shape how the game is going to play and feel. That is the purpose of this video. So here are some examples of what I had in mind for the game's combat. And I'd really appreciate your feedback in the comments below, and in particular, I want to know what you think of the pacing. Does it seem too fast? And at a glance, does the UI/resource system seem confusing or hard to understand? Does the combat itself look interesting? Does it look boring? Or is it just too much tuna overall? And is the movement too much? Right now, I haven't really decided whether or not I actually want to keep the wall running in or out of the game, but I do know that I want to keep the dash. The wall running feels cool, but at the same time, I'm very concerned that the wall running will create this situation where it makes it very difficult for new players to get into the game, because, as you know, I do want this to be a PvP game in the long run. This is an issue you actually see with a lot of games like Titanfall, for example, where over time, the people that have been playing the game for so long, they get so good at the movement, which is so fundamental, and the movement is so crazy that you can do all these crazy things. So when a new player jumps in, it becomes like almost impossible for them to even try to get any kills or really win anything, and it does not feel good, so they don't play it. I am very concerned that that would be an issue if I implement wall running. Which, just as a side note, I do think this is one of the things that Apex has done very well, because it does have wall running, just not quite as advanced as the Titanfall, you know, wall run for days type of thing. In Apex, that advanced movement isn't required for you to perform, but it is there if you want to spend the time to actually learn it, and it does pay off if you do. I'm also a bit concerned on actually doing this in first person as well. You know, having all these magic spells flying around and everything, I feel like it could probably make it too much tuna and make it very difficult to see. However, you don't have that issue with third person. Also, third person is much easier to execute than first person because, well, it's just less animations, etc., etc. So how would you feel about a third person version of this, or do you just prefer the FPS? Right now I am still leaning towards the FPS side of things because it is more unique, and that's the playstyle that I actually prefer anyway, but let me know your thoughts below in the comments. There is going to be multiple weapons to offer different playstyles as well. Like I said, PvP is going to be in this game, and my long-term goal is to service both the casual players as well as the sweats, which if you play any competitive game, you know is a very difficult thing to achieve and why there's always so much issues and backlash when it comes to these games. And this is why there will be a lot of different playstyles offered. For example, the staves will essentially have homing with their projectiles, and before you freak out, hold on. It means if you are on or near your target when you shoot, it will be a guaranteed hit. However, the projectile will be relatively slow and do significantly less damage than the gun, which on the flip side of things, the gun will be treated more like your standard competitive FPS guns these days, using a high-speed projectile that does significantly more damage than the staff. So while it is much harder to aim and be accurate, there is a much higher reward. Of course, the numbers will be tweaked over time to ensure both options are viable, but this is one way I plan to make the game fun and rewarding for both sweaty players and casuals. And just for full transparency, there is going to be a sword as well, but that weapon might not quite work how you would think. It's not going to be just a straight melee weapon. It's actually going to operate more like a magical sword blade beam type of thing. Think Elden Ring. And eventually I would like to release other weapons as well as time goes on, but these are the 3 weapons I'm going to start with. Maybe we'll add in a bow. We'll see. But I really want to know what you guys think before I start from scratch to ensure I build the right foundation for the game and for you. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Okay, love you, bye.